when you look at Ruto, and he was complaining the other day that he shouldn't be compared to Moi. Why isn't he being compared to anybody else? Because a lot of the things he's doing are Moist. A lot of things he's doing are from Moi's cookbook. You know, the plunder, the absolute destruction, which is uniform, is Moi's typical. And when you look at the abductions, you look at the torture, you look at the disappearances, you look at the intolerance, you look at the lies, where a person pretends to be a Christian and does everything against the scripture and against the Christian principles. It's absolute Moi. But the thing is, Ruto is worse than Moi. The reason why Ruto is worse than Moi is that Moi, we should stop calling Ruto president. Part of deconstructing and removing the veneer of legitimacy from a tyrant is to stop using the title he prefers to be referred to as. Let's not call Ruto head of state, head of government, president. Let's call Ruto William Kipchirchir Ruto. Let's reduce him to the level of just a human being with no title. That's who he is. He's just like you, like me, like everybody else. Let's call him William Kipchirchir Ruto. No president. That's important because this struggle is at different levels. It's at the emotional level. It's at the personal level. It's at the national level. It's at the international level. And in terms of the strategy of reducing him to a normal person, the reason for that is that the country, the citizens, Kenyans will find it very easy to talk of removing him and actually remove him the moment they don't refer to him as president. The word president brings fear, uncertainty, and some people can't think of actually fighting and removing a president from power. So let's remove that from him. Two, and this he didn't say, but this I'm going to add. Let's stop referring to the regime as the leadership, because leadership comes with responsibility and expectations. I don't think Kenyans expect anything out of this regime. It's been more than 2 years, and their history speaks for itself. They loot, they plunder, they oppress, they exploit, they abuse, they torture, they abduct, they lie. They don't do anything that you can call leadership. This regime has no vision, has no interest, does not even pretend that it seeks to resolve or to solve any of our problems. Therefore, let's call it a regime, a tyranny, a group of thieves. And if we do this consistently, we will gain a momentum that so far is lacking. Let's stop talking about 2027. I agree with Milton, and this is what we've been saying consistently. Let's talk about Ruto going now. Ruto must go now. I am suspicious of some of the people that have been talking around the country and posting messages about the judiciary, about the Chief Justice, about all manner of things, but not Ruto. You have to be very suspicious of these people, because why would at this time, when we know the amount of damage that this regime has inflicted on the Kenyan people, anybody would be focused on anybody else except Ruto? Because this reminds me, and history is important. I've posted something today about it, and yesterday too. This reminds me of when everybody in the country was saying, in fact, even at some point, Njonjo must go. And of course, Ruto got rid of Njonjo. Did the regime improve? No, because previously, before Njonjo was hounded out of power, the the Moi cabals was spreading the rumor that detention without trial was a Njonjo thing. He was the one who was doing it. That he was the one who was the evil one within the regime. After Njonjo was fired or removed, nothing changed. There was nothing qualitatively different from what the regime was before Njonjo and after Njonjo. And before then, the Kikuyu cabals in Kenyatta government, it was called the Kiambu Mafia, had said Mboya was the problem. Mboya was assassinated and things got worse. Before then, Jaramogi was the problem. Jaramogi was removed or resigned from being vice president and the situation got worse. Now, leapfrog to now. They told you a month ago that the problem was Gachagua. They said that Gachagua was the embodiment of tribalism and sectarianism in the KK regime. They orchestrated a scheme to remove Gachagua from being DP so that they could bring Kindiki. They rushed in the impeachment process, violated the constitution, did everything that was unprocedural, removed Gachagua. Have you seen any meaningful change? Zero. In fact, if you asked an average citizen, things have gotten worse. The country is more divided. The economy has not improved. Tribalism has not become better. It's become worse because Ruto is appointing more, not even Kalenjins really, people from Kapsabet High School into his regime to all levels of institutional power and authority, all institutions. And if this is what is happening, it will simply get worse, and we cannot allow ourselves to be distracted to side issues, to things that are meant to fortify Ruto in power. So my opening is to challenge all of us to think strategically and to think of the tactics and the strategies of how regimes like this ones are removed. We have had recent examples in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, and just this week from South Korea. Of course, we cannot replicate them or emulate them exactly the way that they have done their popular revolution. We have to come up with our own. The problem I have, and this is where I'm going to land, is that Kenyans tend to talk, and talk is good because it is part of freedom of expression, which is entrenched in the Constitution, and you cannot remove a dictatorship without also encouraging people to talk and talk and talk and talk, and to even harass the regime into silence and out of power. But if you talk and you don't follow through with your talk, then there is a problem. And this is my problem. We have had resolutions in these spaces. We have said what it is that we are going to do. We have given ourselves timelines. We have called for protests. But there have been no follow through. I think the challenge today, and not just on this space, because these spaces will continue, being that in the 21st century, technology is the most important instrument for mobilization and organization. So we can't run away from these spaces and from these platforms and from the social media. Anybody who tells you they're useless is counter-revolutionary. But we also must get the people to understand that not going beyond them is a problem and is worse than not talking at all. So let's be concrete, let's be committed, and let's get out and remove Moi. Not Moi, but he's almost like Moi anyway. Remove Ruto from power. People like Professor Kivuta Kibwana probably can make the same mistake I'm making by referring Ruto as Moi. Because really, when you look at Ruto, and he was complaining the other day that he shouldn't be compared to Moi. Why isn't he being compared to anybody else? Because a lot of the things he's doing are Moist. A lot of things he's doing are from Moi's cookbook. You know, the plunder, the absolute destruction, which is uniform, is Moi's typical. And when you look at the abductions, you look at the torture, you look at the disappearances, you look at the intolerance, you look at the lies, where a person pretends to be a Christian and does everything against the scripture and against the Christian principles. It's absolute Moi. But the thing is, Ruto is worse than Moi. The reason why Ruto is worse than Moi is that Moi, for the longest time, operated like that under one-party dictatorship. The Constitution only allowed Moi and Kanu to be in power. Detention without trial was actually allowed in the statute books, believe it or not. And that came with torture. So a lot of things that Moi did had some kind of, I would not call it legal justification, but at least the pretense of it. This one is now a regime under the Constitution of Kenya 2010, which proscribed torture, which proscribed detention beyond 24 hours without somebody being taken to court, which proscribed all the things that he's doing, including looting, because we have Chapter 6, which says that all people who occupy public positions must adhere to the principles enunciated under Chapter 6. And he's violated all of them. And now he's orchestrating a scheme to alter or mutilate the Constitution, destroy the independence of the judiciary. That is why people like Ahmed Nasir and Havi are making noise that Koome must go. I'm not saying Koome is competent. I'm not saying Koome is not corrupt. I'm not saying Koome should not be removed. But the chorus is a Ruto chorus. These are Ruto henchmen sent to divert our attention to Koome so that we don't focus on Ruto. So that after Ruto removes Koome, Ruto can now institutionalize full authority over the judiciary, which he has already destroyed parliament. He has destroyed all the institutions that were supposed to check the executive. Now his focus is on the judiciary. The judiciary, no matter what we say about it, is still the only functioning independent institution in the country. It's the only one left. There are members of this judiciary that you cannot corrupt. Nobody is going to convince me that you can corrupt Professor Ngugi, Justice Ngugi, or Odunga, or Chacha Mwita. You would not convince me because they have shown for more than 20 years that they are incorruptible. And they are members of this judiciary. So anytime anybody tells you all members of the judiciary are corrupt, blah, 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 that is an agent of Ruto. We must focus on Ruto. And once we remove Ruto, all his cabals, including at the judiciary, will go with them. I learned.
Thank you so much, Dr.